My name is Isabella. Sitting here in the courtroom, watching as the judge hands down the sentences to those who tried to steal my son's future, I'm flooded with a mix of relief and lingering pain. It's been a long and arduous journey, and as I look at my now 10-year-old son, Leo, sitting beside me, I'm reminded of how close we came to losing everything. It all started on that fateful day when Leo, my brave 8-year-old, was in the operating room. I was sitting in the surgical waiting room, my eyes glued to the red light that held his life in the balance. I was so consumed by worry that when my phone buzzed against the plastic chair, I almost ignored it. But something made me look. It was a text from my mother-in-law, Helen. We needed the money more. You'll thank us later when you see what we did for the family. Stop being selfish, Isabella, it read. My hands trembled as I read it over and over, trying to make sense of the words. What money? What on earth had she done? Before I could even begin to respond, another text came through. This one was from my sister-in-law, Grace. Mom says you're probably freaking out, but honestly, Leo won't need all that stuff if the surgery doesn't work anyway. We got $30,000 for everything. Better than letting it collect dust. I felt like the world had tilted on its axis. I stood up so quickly that my purse hit the floor, spilling its contents across the worn carpet of the waiting room. An elderly woman tried to help me gather my things, but I was already running towards the elevator. Ma'am, you can't leave, a nurse called after me. My son's equipment, I gasped. I need to check. I'll be right back. Please, if anything happens. She must have seen the desperation in my face because she didn't argue further. The elevator ride to the parking garage felt like an eternity. Leo had been in a spinal accident 2 years ago, which left him partially paralyzed. My husband, Ethan, and I had spent every last cent we had, sold our house, emptied our savings, and taken on a mountain of debt to get him the best equipment. The custom wheelchair alone cost $35,000, and with the standing frame, the specialized communication device, and the adaptive technology for his remote schooling, we had invested nearly $50,000 in total. And the insurance company had fought us every step of the way on every single item. When I finally reached our parking spot, I stopped dead in my tracks. The van was there, but the back doors were wide open, empty. The lock had been cut with bolt cutters, and even Leo's backup manual wheelchair was gone. Just then, my phone rang. It was Helen. How dare you get security involved? She shrieked before I could even speak. You stole from my paralyzed son during his surgery, I said, my voice deadly calm. While he's fighting for a chance to walk again, you stole the equipment he needs to survive. Stole? I have a key. You gave me a key for emergencies, she retorted. Medical emergencies, not for this, I shot back. Then she mentioned security. What security? Don't play dumb. That security chief already came to the house. We're not talking to him without a lawyer. And with that, she hung up. I ran back to the hospital's main entrance. At the security desk, a tall man with kind, blue eyes and salt and pepper hair was reviewing something on multiple monitors. Excuse me, I started. He looked up, and his expression softened. Mrs. Thompson? Isabella Thompson? He asked. Yes, how did you? I stammered. Your van was broken into on our property. We've been reviewing the footage for the past hour. I'm Chief Miller. I was about to come find you, but I understand your son is in surgery. Your mother-in-law said you came to her house. His expression darkened as he motioned for me to sit down. Ma'am, what I'm about to show you is going to be hard to watch. He turned one of the monitors towards me. The timestamp showed 7:47 a.m. Just 13 minutes after Leo had been wheeled into surgery. The black and white footage clearly showed our van. A sleek, black SUV pulled up beside it. Helen climbed out of the passenger side, followed by Grace and her husband, Kyle. I watched in horror as they used the key to open the van. Then Kyle returned with bolt cutters for the additional locks we'd installed inside. They worked so efficiently, it was as if they had planned it all. Helen was directing them, pointing at different equipment. The custom wheelchair came out first, then the standing frame was folded down. The communication device, the portable ramp, and even the special cushions designed to prevent pressure sores were all taken out. "There's more," Chief Miller said quietly as he switched to another camera angle. This one showed them at a medical supply store. "We have connections with most medical equipment dealers in the area. When items this specialized show up, they're supposed to verify ownership," he explained. The new footage showed them unloading everything at Quick Cash Medical Supplies, a place I recognized from the seedy part of town. No questions asked, cash on the spot. "The dealer called us when he ran the serial numbers and they came up as flagged," Chief Miller continued. "You registered all this equipment, didn't you?" I nodded, unable to speak. 2 years ago, after Leo's accident, a social worker had suggested registering everything with serial numbers in case of theft. I thought she was being overcautious. Good news is, we've already recovered everything. It's being held as evidence. Bad news is, this is organized theft of medical equipment valued over $10,000. That's a federal crime. And it was stolen from a minor with disabilities during a medical procedure. Federal crime? I whispered. He then asked if I wanted to press charges. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was another text from Helen. "Your father-in-law says we'll give you $5,000 to drop this nonsense." "That's more than fair." I showed Chief Miller the text. His eyebrows shot up. "Ma'am, that's attempting to bribe a witness. If you'll excuse me, I need to make a call." He stepped away, phone already at his ear. I could hear fragments of his conversation. FBI, medical equipment, disabled minor, attempted bribery. I sat there, numb, staring at the footage still playing on loop. Grace was laughing as she loaded Leo's walker, and Kyle was carelessly tossing the communication device that had taken so long to customize for Leo's specific needs. Helen was directing it all, like a twisted conductor. Just then, a nurse appeared at my side. "Mrs. Thompson, your son is out of surgery. The doctor wants to speak with you." I jumped up, the investigation suddenly taking a back seat. "Is he?" "He did beautifully. The surgeon will explain everything, but it went even better than expected." I followed her on shaky legs, tears streaming down my face. Leo was okay. The surgery had worked. Everything else could wait. Dr. Ramirez met me outside the recovery room, still in his surgical scrubs. "Mrs. Thompson, I have excellent news. We were able to decompress the nerves completely. With physical therapy and his equipment, Leo has an excellent chance of regaining significant mobility. Maybe not full recovery, but certainly much more independence than he has now." "His equipment," I said, and suddenly I was sobbing. "They stole his equipment. While you were operating, they stole everything." Dr. Ramirez's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, and then rage. "Who stole medical equipment from a paralyzed child?" "My husband's family. They needed money," I managed to say. "I'll be right back," he said tightly. "Don't move." 20 minutes later, I was sitting beside Leo's bed in recovery, holding his small hand and watching him sleep off the anesthesia. That's when Chief Miller returned with 2 other people. A woman in an FBI windbreaker and a man in a sharp suit. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm Agent Rebecca Cruz with the FBI's Healthcare Fraud Unit. This is Assistant U.S. Attorney Mark Harris. We take theft of medical equipment very seriously, especially when it involves disabled children." I was still confused. "Why the FBI?" Agent Cruz explained, "Your mother-in-law crossed state lines to sell the equipment. The dealer they sold to ships internationally. Plus, the value exceeds $50,000, and it's specialized medical equipment for a minor. This falls under several federal statutes. Assistant U.S. Attorney Harris leaned forward. We've already arrested Helen, Grace, and Kyle. They're being processed now. But I need to ask, were there any warning signs? Any previous incidents? I thought about the last 2 years. There had been snide comments about wasting money on a lost cause. Grace had once asked if Leo's equipment would be up for grabs if he didn't make it. They had always suggested that we should let nature take its course instead of fighting for Leo's recovery. Helen had even called Child Protective Services, claiming we were medically abusing Leo by pursuing treatment. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through 2 years of messages I had never deleted. The guilt trips about money, the suggestions that Leo would be better off without interventions. Agent Cruz photographed everything. This establishes a pattern. They didn't just steal equipment. They've been trying to deny this child medical care for years. Just then, Leo's small voice interrupted us. "Mommy," he said, his eyes fluttering open, confused and groggy. I squeezed his hand. "I'm here, baby. The surgery went perfectly. You did so good." "Did I? Can I walk?" he asked. "The doctor says with therapy, you're going to do amazing things. We'll work hard, okay?" He smiled sleepily. "With my standing frame? And my wheels?" I glanced at the agents, and they nodded. "Yes, baby, with all your equipment, everything's going to be fine." As Leo drifted back to sleep, Chief Miller's phone rang. He stepped out, returning with a grim expression. That was the medical supply store. Turns out your in-laws weren't first-time sellers. They've been bringing in smaller items for months, supplies, medications. Always claimed they were from a deceased relative. My stomach lurched. I had been wondering where Leo's backup supplies kept disappearing to. Extra catheters, specialized grips for his utensils, the expensive pressure relief cushions. "We'll need an inventory of everything that's gone missing," Agent Cruz said. "This is bigger than just today's theft." The next few hours were a blur. Ethan arrived, white-faced and shaking with rage when he learned what his family had done. The police photographed Leo's empty equipment closet at home. The FBI seized records from the medical supply store, showing dozens of transactions, all of Leo's supplies sold off piece by piece. The worst part came when we reviewed our security cameras at home. The footage showed Helen using her emergency key to enter while we were at Leo's therapy appointments. She was loading supplies into bags, and in one video, she was on the phone, clearly laughing. The audio was faint but audible. They buy so much junk for that kid, they'll never notice. It's practically charity giving this stuff to people who can actually use it. By evening, the charges had multiplied. Grand theft, trafficking stolen medical equipment, conspiracy, fraud. Elder abuse charges were added when they found evidence that Helen had been doing the same thing to other families in her church, volunteering to help with disabled relatives and then stealing their supplies. That night, I sat in Leo's hospital room, watching him sleep. The surgery had been a success, but he'd need months of therapy, all with the equipment his own family had tried to steal. Ethan sat across from me, his head in his hands. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. I knew they were cold about Leo, but I never thought. God, ISA, they could have killed him. If he'd come out of surgery with no equipment. But he didn't, I said firmly. We caught them. He's going to be okay. Your mother called me selfish while I was sitting here, terrified, waiting to know if our son would ever walk again. She was stealing from him and calling me selfish. Dr. Ramirez and Agent Cruz entered the room. I'm sorry to interrupt, Agent Cruz said, but I wanted to update you. All three of them are being held without bail. The judge considered them flight risks and dangers to the community, especially given the vulnerability of their victims. All three? I asked. 4, actually. We just arrested the medical supply store owner, too. He knew the equipment was stolen and had a whole system for moving it overseas. Your in-laws were just one of his suppliers. Dr. Ramirez spoke up. I've also been in touch with the hospital's legal team. We're prepared to testify about the medical impact of denying a child necessary equipment. What they did wasn't just theft. It was attempted murder by medical neglect. After they left, Ethan and I sat in silence, processing everything. Our son was going to be okay. His equipment would be returned. The people who tried to hurt him were in custody. But the betrayal, that would take longer to heal. Over the next week, as Leo began his recovery, the case against his grandparents grew. More victims came forward. Families from their church, neighbors, even a cousin whose daughter had cerebral palsy. All had stories of missing equipment, supplies that vanished during Helen's helpful visits. The trial was set for 6 months out. In the meantime, we had to completely re-secure our house. New locks, a new security system, cameras everywhere. Leo's equipment room now had a biometric lock. The day he took his first assisted steps with his new walker, one of the items his grandmother had stolen, I filmed it. His joy, his determination, his pride. This was what they tried to take from him. Not just equipment, but hope. Not just things, but futures. Helen wrote me a letter from jail. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. Isabella, you've destroyed our family over things, material possessions that insurance probably covered anyway. Was it worth it? Was your pride worth taking grandparents away from that boy? We were trying to help you see reality. Some children aren't meant to be saved. The money you waste on Leo could help normal children. You'll understand one day that we were right. I saved the letter for the trial. The prosecutor said it would help show lack of remorse. Now, as I look at Leo, walking with assistance, a top student in his class, I know that we've come a long way. He knows his grandparents are in prison but doesn't know the full details. Someday I'll tell him how while he was fighting for his life on an operating table, they were stealing his future and selling it for cash. But I'll also tell him how good people Chief Miller, Agent Cruz, Dr. Ramirez fought for him. How the FBI takes protecting disabled children seriously. How his equipment was returned, his future restored, and justice served. Helen got 15 years. Grace and Kyle got 10 years each. The medical supply dealer got 25 years. They all have to pay restitution, though will likely never see a penny. But Leo has what he needs. He has his equipment, his chance at independence, and parents who will fight anyone who tries to take that away. Even, especially, family who once believed he was worth less than $30,000 in cash. The security footage from that day sits in an FBI evidence locker somewhere. It's proof that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones causing harm. But it's also proof that someone is always watching, that justice delayed isn't always justice denied, and that stealing from the vulnerable has consequences. Leo asked me once why we don't visit Grandma anymore. I told him simply, sometimes people show you who they really are. When they do, you believe them. He nodded, wise beyond his years, and went back to his homework, walking away on legs they said would never work, using the equipment they said he'd never need, living a life they tried to steal. That's the real victory, not the convictions or the sentences, but Leo thriving, growing, defying every limitation they tried to place on him. They stole his equipment, but they couldn't steal his spirit. And in the end, that's what really mattered.